All right, good evening. It's Wednesday, June 18th, 2005 at 7:03 p.m. This is the Town of Wellington, Connecticut's Board of Finance regular meeting. And it's called to order. Won't be necessary to see that any alternates. So we'll go on to approval of the minutes, starting with item number 1, May 15th, 2025.
Move to accept the minutes of May 15th, 2025.
Second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous.
I think I should change my verb to approve. Is that right?
What did you say?
I said accept. Anyway,
Item number 2, May 22nd, 2025. Minutes.
I'll vote to accept them.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Any noes? All right, unanimous. Item number 3 under minutes, May 29th, 2025.
I'll move to approve the minutes of May 29th with the following correction or amplification. Page 3, 4 graphs from the last vote before correspondence, where it says, I requested a copy of the policy with information. I just want to clarify what policy that's referring to, the second budget referendum policy. There's no objections.
Did we have a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous. Next, we'll move on to present to speak. Public participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress, stay on topic, and maintain decorum. If we have anybody for present to speak. Mitch? Yeah, well,
I'll thank you guys for your service.
could you just say that?
Okay, Hitch Stabler, Quebec Road. Just want to say thank you for your service and sorry you have to go through another round of stuff. That budget stuff. As a taxpayer, I just want to kind of voice my opinion in the election that even though the town's budget passed, it was by a narrow margin. The school budget failed by a fairly narrow margin as well. But given the 2/3 majority that was opposed to both budgets to begin with, I think moving forward, we still have to be very fiscally frugal, I guess would be the proper word. I've been pretty vocal in other meetings about my stance on spending on the school budget, given current performance. So I'll let that stand, let the record stand for that. But bear in mind, if we go any higher with the school budget, it's gonna increase people's taxes, which they clearly don't have an appetite for. That's all I have.
Thanks, Mitch. Yes.
Hi, Judy Freet, 19 Birch Meadow Lane. I just wanted to thank all of you for all the hard work. It's very clear that this is a very thoughtful, very engaged process, and it seems like a never ending journey, but I just want to say thank you. That's it.
Thank you. John T. here.
Hi, good evening, John Tehan, 26 Eldridge Mills Road. I just wanted to comment on the vote yesterday. 31% of the town turned out and voted. To my mind, it's unfortunate that that's considered a high turnout for a referendum. I think we should definitely have more people voting. 69% of the town, well over 2/3 of the town did not vote. Of those people that did vote, we seem to have an even split. I would like to see more information put out to voters so that they can assess the impact of any cuts or additional taxes. I'm looking at my own taxes. My taxes are going up by 11.5% because of the reval. I would like to know if let's say we cut $400,000 from the Board of Education budget, what does that do to my taxes? Do I see a 5% increase? Do I see an 8% increase? What does that actually do to my taxes? I'd like to see the information put out so that people can calculate that for themselves. Thank you.
Thanks, John. James Bueller?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, Jim Bulick, Laurel Drive, former selectman, former member of the Board of Finance. I just want to iterate at least my personal feelings that I think the voters sent a very clear message that they still feel our budget is too high with regards to the valuation, the revaluation. And I think we should do whatever we can to soften that impact on our citizens. And what I'd like to see is, to re-examine that phase-in, if you will, that revaluation phase-in. I know we discussed it at an earlier meeting. I attended that, but I would like to have you guys talk about that again. And secondly, I think the voters made it very clear that they still want us to take whatever financial steps necessary to soften that blow. So if, I would strongly suggest that we look to make cuts in the education budget, cuts in the rate of increase in the education budget. Let me make that very clear. And if you could examine that this evening, I'd very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Jim McCoo?
Hi, this is Mike McCoo, Clover Springs Drive. Just a couple of comments. First of all, to point out the agenda for tonight has what is at least a minor defect in it where it says it is a special meeting and a regular meeting. I'm assuming that's an error to include the words regular meeting in there, since you can't create a regular meeting during the season. The regular meeting is tomorrow night, which I'm assuming isn't happening. And so I just wanted to point that out, that this is a special meeting and can only be a special meeting because it was added during the year. Beyond that, having been a previous Board of Finance chairman, I know that past boards of finance have put a cover letter out often with the budget, particularly if there are unique features or things that may require some more unique understanding of the public. It seems, if I followed these meetings carefully enough, that this idea has been shot down in the recent, maybe both of these last two budget seasons. And I think that that is a mistake, and I think we're experiencing some of the results of that mistake. Explaining the budget and providing a source of official information, regardless of how any individual member of the board voted, is critical to the voters being able to make informed decisions. With a vacuum of official information, the unofficial information will quickly fill the gap. In this situation, a fever of educated guesses, honest interpretations, and sadly, purely intentional misleading information has been distributed throughout the town in physical forms, whether it's on signs, in discussions at the transfer station and other places on town, and on the ever unofficial but very effective social media. And that misinformation and even the well-intended unofficial information was gobbled up in a fever because people had the need for information to make their decisions on, and they didn't have official information to help interpret the numbers that were sent out in the packet. The damage is done so far, but it really needs to be corrected. The people deserve a source of legitimate information, and the leaders who are on these boards and others who are either appointed or elected need to honor the trust that the public's put in them and get out accurate information without bias, regardless of what their personal feelings are about the final decision of the board or the budget package put forward. So again, as I've asked throughout this process, it really would help the people to know how we got where we are. And I would ask that whatever decisions are forthcoming, there be some sort of introduction or brief overview sent to the public of whatever this latest iteration of the budget is and why it is that way, so people can make a better educated decision instead of believing the garbage they're getting on Facebook and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Peter Tanaka.
Yeah, to Mike's point about the scheduling a regular meeting in the middle of the year. I believe that tomorrow is Juneteenth, and so the regular meeting may have been scheduled for tonight on the schedule at the beginning of the year. I have not checked that. I think that may be where this special meeting, where the regular meeting.
It is on the town's calendar tomorrow.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
it
you.
is.
Yeah, that's where I saw
That's
it.
where I saw it.
I was surprised when I heard it.
Yeah.
James.
James Marshall, Fisher Hill Road. I just want to second many of Mike McHugh's comments, because they are very well put, very well taken. I am personally very discouraged and disheartened, by the failure of the Board of Ed vote yesterday. Largely because I don't believe that it should be on the Board of Ed and the children in our schools to shoulder the entire burden of a budget increase or a budget reduction. Need, particularly when the reality is most of what you do tonight is gonna have very little impact on people's large increases in the reevaluation. At the cost of a well-functioning community, of, people willing to work together, of student services, potentially student staff, none of which are easy in a small community like this to consolidate on an individual basis. So the reality is, I urge you guys to recognize that at the cost of yet another referendum in town, the organization and the outreach and the communication needs to be a heck of a lot better, a heck of a lot more transparent, and with a heck of a lot more integrity, quite frankly, than what I've seen over the past couple of weeks, let alone this entire budget cycle. I'm expecting a hell of a lot more from leadership in this town, and I'm not seeing it. And I think everybody deserves better. So I hope you guys are very considerate tonight, very thoughtful about what changes you plan to make or suggest to the budget. I hope you take any recommendations or suggestions from Mr. Stevens or members of the Board of Ed to heart as to what the potential impacts might be. And I just encourage you to be cautious, because we have to be more positive. We have to be more, we have to generate positivity and growth in this community, because right now we're just getting stagnant, and situations like this don't do anybody any good. So, thank you.
Thank you, James. Anybody else for president to speak?
Peter Oltinchich, 97 Trask Road. Good evening. I want to also express concern about the conversation we've been hearing about information, what kind of information, disinformation. As a member of a family that escaped from an Iron Curtain country where you were shot if you disagreed with the state official information, I'm always instinctively concerned about anyone that suggests that anyone's freedom of expression or individual liberty somehow should be subject to the official interpretation of anything. In our budget process here, I think the townspeople in both referendums recognized, based on whatever information they were absorbing, that it was more than they could afford. And I don't think it's a reasonable assumption by people, given the reval, which makes this budget year very different from every other. And I think we all know that, including myself. That said, I'm confident this board can reach a good compromise tonight. I hope you work effectively to do that. What I would ask you, because I think what's evident from the budget process this year, is that we have some structural problems in our budget we're not addressing. One of them is the continued growth of our K-12 budget. as our enrollment declines. The community's having difficulty understanding that and how we fund that based on our limited means. A corollary to that is the large transfers we are making in the capital budget for future projects, whether they be education, emergency services, or other projects. The strain of those large increases each year is telling. It's showing in the budget process as we're seeing this in these multiple referendums. And I think it'd be worthwhile to take a good look at that after this budget season ends. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. I have a letter to read. Somebody sent me today. It's from Jennifer McCoo. To the Board of Finance, as a citizen of Wellington, I am embarrassed and angered at how this budget process has played out. Our family has been a beneficiary of the Wellington public education system for decades. And for all the inflammatory rhetoric about failing schools without data to support, this system has done wonders for family members with special needs, those that exceed grade level, and everyone in between. It is disgraceful how the schools and the folks who work there have been portrayed by specific members of your board, including the chair. I'd love to remind folks that we seem to have no interest as a town in broadening our tax base commercially. So the way to increase revenue is to attract more residents. I feel sure that underfunding and casting aspersions on our education system and those that run it will not go far toward that end. Parents choose towns to move to for the education system and one of the few amenities. Wellington has given fiscal considerations. It says is small class sizes. This lends to more individualized attention and care for students, translating directly to student success. With draconian cuts, this amenity goes away. The vote of certain members of the Board of Finance who absolve yourselves of responsibility of doing the hard work and shunting it to the voters seems to have worked in your favor. As Chairman Lawler has vote no and misinformation about tax increases prominently displayed all over his home. The member of the Board of Education of the process has angered and embarrassed me on numerous occasions throughout this process. When we were holding marathon meetings in attempts to work a doable budget, both to support the students and to get a reasonable budget to taxpayers, we asked for collaboration from both Board of Finance and Board of Selectmen. This never happened. Did either of those boards hold marathon meetings to achieve the same goal? Maybe this board this evening could have the courage of its convictions and alert the taxpayers, many of whom are parents, to what you are interested in seeing slashed and cut with what are most likely to be even deeper cuts than have already been made to a budget that can ill afford any. Sincerely, Jennifer McCoo, Clover Springs Drive, Wilmington, Connecticut. Could you just pass that over, please? Thank you. Bill?
Yeah, Phil Stevens, Superintendent of Schools. I just want to make sure I remind folks about our history of budgets that have been presented in this town, in the Board of Education. I think people think we spend wildly. 2021 was a 1.98% increase. 21-22, 1.14. 22-23, 1.26. 23-24, 0.85. 24-25 was a 675, and it was only because of one program and very specific needs that we're required legally to provide. This year is a 277 at this point in time. We have given you 1 year as a board beyond this year that's been over a 2. So when we think about inflation and people talk about inflation and the rates that the Board of Education budget is growing, think about those percentages of what our increases have been, because they've been very, very thorough as we've reviewed them, and they've been very, very fair.
Thank you, Phil. If anybody else present to speak? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted, since it was something that I've been talking about, I wanted to address it. All of the data that I've shared on this, the Board of Education has been through official sources. I've quoted my sources. We have a 37% equivalency rate for math, and it's 42%. I got that wrong. 42 or 44% for reading. My whole point has been we have a school that's failing regardless of what the budget is. And throwing more money at a bad situation is just as fiscally irresponsible as, you know, is what they're kind of claiming. Also, I'm not suggesting teachers have been cut, should be cut, never been my assumption. I think there's administrative areas that can be made. And I have yet to hear any kind of plan in the past 2 or 3 years that have been bringing this topic up from the Board of Education on how they're going to address our very low standards of our school performance. I think that's it. I don't reserve my time.
Thank you. Yes,
I just want to address the
could
failure.
you identify?
G319 Birch Meadow Lane, the failure of our schools. Both my kids have graduated from E.O. Smith and they are at the University of Connecticut now. One's a rising sophomore, one's a rising senior. And they are excelling because of their education that they got in Bloomington. One is pre-med, she's in honors. They are both 4.0 students. They have not had any difficulty with their classwork. They are TAs, they are RAs, and they are excelling at the University of Connecticut because what they got here. And this is not a failing school system. So numbers don't always tell the whole picture. And you can cite lots of different things and read those numbers in lots of different ways. But you need to look at the kids that this school has produced, and they have produced successful adults. Thank you.
Anybody else for present to speak? Yes.
I'm Ken Grosjean, 11 Birch Meadow Lane in Burlington, also board member. I don't even know what to say. I'm just so disappointed. We really cut what we could that did not affect our children directly. Talking about having too many administrators, our best plan to reduce our number of administrators is to combine our two schools, and then we have a natural reduction that way. But the town so far has not wanted to consider that. As far as the scores go, reducing staff, reducing our resources is not going to help that situation. As a matter of fact, I think when we get our new scores out into the public, they're just coming back from the state now. I think you'll be pleased to see that we are improving. So a lot of the programs we've been doing for the past few years are really paying on. I was thinking about what can we cut that doesn't directly help the kids, and I couldn't really come up with anything. So I'm sorry, I just don't even know what to say.
Thank you. Anybody else for present to speak? Here.
Selectman Clark is trying to get in on Zoom. You let him in.
Who?
Our selectman, Matt Clark. Well, she's there, but they texted me asking if the board could let him in.
There's no one here.
It doesn't show his name up there.
Okay. We'll do that.
Try again.
You might have the wrong link. There's 2 links up, because Monday's meeting is also up. So he may be trying to get into Monday's meeting.
When you go to, that's when we go to Wednesday's agenda.
Yeah.
And they,
When you go to the agendas, there's Mondays comes first, and then it's this week, because I almost made the same mistake.
even though it's next Monday, it comes first, so.
So you should
He
link it on
just might be in the
Wednesday.
wrong one.
Yeah.
He's got
Don't
the
look at
wrong link.
Wednesday's agenda. Nutella?
Nick Tello, Myrtle Road, Wellington. I just, going in this, I mean, everybody's already knows my opinion and everything. I just hope that we can
Hey,
do a
Nick,
flat.
you got some feedback. I think you have 2 mics or something.
Let me try to fix it. You can go to somebody else anytime.
Anybody else present to speak? Then we'll move on to new business. We'll start with item number 1, transfers, down with 10-6.
Yes, the planning and zoning department has an end of year transfer request. And Mike Tomato has the information for you.
I just passed it out so that I can talk to it. I think I have enough. So, as you all know, the land use department for the upcoming fiscal year, we basically had the budget that was approved last night. results in essentially a 40% reduction in our department funds when you exclude the costs associated with basically personnel. So we are in a situation where we have several projects which are ongoing, and they are costs that span multiple fiscal years, and we are likely now not gonna have the funds in next year's operating budget to cover those projects. There are 3 of them primarily that we have, which again are ongoing. So in an effort to try to not stall the projects at, the 50-yard line, we're essentially asking to take the savings that are currently in the P and Z and then wetlands and building department lines and move them into the land use technology capital line so that we can expend the funds as the projects go forward and not sort of chase them on this fiscal year cycle because they don't follow the fiscal year. A lot of our stuff happens kind of not in that type of cycle. So we're not using this. We're not asking you to do this transfer to spend it on any new projects. We're not endeavoring to do anything different. Just trying to figure out a way to capture the money that we have left in the account in the budget now, which is largely because we're trying to get through some of the other stuff that was done through ARPA before we make these expenditures. So having it in the capital line will allow us to continue forward and not, as I said, chase that annual recurring. And in theory, will allow us to sort of right size what we will need to request of this board next year, because again, I'm not going to be sort of trying to line this up with the town's fiscal year. So in front of you, I have the lines that each of them are coming from. This does not drain all of the monies that are in these various departments, so there's enough to cover any additional expenses between now and the end of the month, and anything that may come in that we're unaware of, legal notices, whatever. So we're not zeroing everything out. So I have each of the lines there, 171, 176, and 241, and then the amounts at the bottom. The other piece that you'll see for building is proposing to move that into another existing project line, which is the Route 32 streetscape, the sidewalk project. We are sort of at the last stage of review with DOT and Prague. So there's some final pieces of documentation that we will have to have prepared through either our engineer or attorney. There will be some costs associated with that as we start working with the property owners in that area. And both the consulting land use, the attorney fund or line and the consulting town engineer line have both been reduced over the last couple of years in the budget. So we don't have as much to pull from there. So I'm asking to move monies into that account so that we can cover what those costs are going to be, not knowing what the operating lines for some of those other will end up being now that they've been reduced.
One other question. So document preservation, are you sort of, does that sunset that project, or does that delay that project in its entirety if we do this transfer?
So if we do the transfer, then the plan will be to complete it. There's a minimum, they won't come out and just take a box and scan it. So the minimum that they had was 10,000, I had 5,000, and I was cobbling 2 together. So it's now not going to be in next year's operating budget. So I only have the 5, I can't finish it. So this will allow for part of the document preservation again, because we're losing it next year. And then the Laserfish system, which is already here and has been here for years, which will allow us to bring that public portal online so that people can access them publicly, and they'll be stored in a way that is in compliance with the Connecticut Public Library.
So it will be sort of toward that project, but under technology improvements. I'm not, is that the segue?
Yeah, so what happened was there was an original allocation by the board into a CIP line. And then subsequent to that, it made its way into the operating budget at 5,000. And so this is just that last piece from the operating budget. It'll be done after that. So it won't have a way to fund it from here. So that
this will be the last sort of round. We'll get through what we have remaining and that'll be the last of it. I hope I'm answering your question.
I think I understand it, but it's gonna be, that's like an electronic version of these documents that it's.
Yep, they take them, they index them, they scan them, they do something called OCR to make all the documents searchable, so and then they index them by the address. And then the system that we already have will provide a public portal so that people can access those documents via the town's website. So that stuff is already in place. We just need to get the rest of the files scanned, because we had sort of a breach in storage when came back to town hall, and there were some issues with what they were stored in and how well they were preserved, and so we need to prevent them from becoming any more of a science project than they already are.
Thank you.
Hey, Peter,
Well,
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Streetscape design, does that fall under money that we can use from the pot shop?
The hot shop money is kind of dried up right now because the closed. So I don't know the answer to that. I don't, community engagement.
I think you could possibly use it for ongoing maintenance of things once portions of this project are complete, but this is specifically related to professional services for the design, which CROG requires the town to fund. The $1.4 million that the project has become is 100% covered by CROG.
Any other questions for Mike? All right, so we have three motions here. Motion to transfer planning and zoning, $12,800 from 01.171 to 03.3090. Land use technology improvements. We have,
So moved.
we have a second. I'll second it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The abstentions? Right. Motion to transfer inland wetlands $1,290 from 01.0172 to 03.3090 land use technology improvements.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, unanimous again. Motion to transfer building $3,050 from 01.0241 to 03.3082 Route 32 streetscape design.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Did I give you one?
Next, item number 2, discuss library requests for funds to update the communication system. And I believe, James, you were going to be talking on that, and
It was
Steve as well.
Yeah, I believe.
Oh, Steve's online.
Yeah, sorry, I could not make it in person, but I am available.
Steve, I can give them a little background on process and where we're at, and you can describe what your requests are and say what you want to do.
Yeah, that works. Yeah.
Perfect. So after after the CIP plan was approved and the CIP planning season for this budget season was completed, a pair of more urgent requests showed up that were not previously captured on the plan. 2 projects. One is for the replacement of the computers at the library, as they are no longer going to be supportive of Windows 10, and will not receive. They will not be receiving support for Windows 10, and cannot be upgraded to receive a new operating system. The second request is for replacement of the, I think, original to the building phone system. To go transfer to voice over IP. Both of these would be LoSiP eligible, which is state funded. But because they were not captured on the plan, that path is unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's available. Don, I can correct me if I'm wrong on that. So with Steve's, I think the current operating notion is that the computer system being urgent, and not likely to last until the plan is up for discussion and review in the next calendar year. That Steve is looking at a general fund request, to accommodate that cost of that project. I'll defer to Steve as to whether or not he feels the phone system can wait, so that we can capture on the CIP plan, as an item next year. And then have low SIP funding, cover that, so there's no hits to the budget. And Don, I know you've had further conversations. I think the only other question I had, outside of the project request, whether there was an emergency authorization request OPM, opportunity to potentially have these considered for low SIP funds. I'm not familiar personally with the process for that. As I haven't experienced it yet, but those are the only other items I think we can consider. So Steve, you want to just fill them in? Oh, I should just add, sorry, the capital improvement program committee was supportive of both of these projects as needing to be accomplished. Again, the hope was to cover through low SIP funding, but it doesn't look like that's viable at this current time, so.
Yeah, I can add in. So yeah, unfortunately, when it came to the computers, those had been discovered probably within a month or so after the CIP plan had been submitted. And because I had kind of been onboarded so soon after actually, I think my second meeting with the board, they had actually finalized the formal budget as well as presented subsequently to the CIP. As a result, this was something that was unfortunately missed, but once it was confirmed, Tab, who does our IT tech support, verified that 10 out of our 11 PC computers are not viable to be updated. Only one staff computer in the back office was purchased at a time or has a software compatible for Windows 11, so it will be able to be upgraded without issue. We did have a staff meeting to kind of discuss use, noting that there's been a decline in population and an increase in use of personal devices in the library. So we did reduce our total number of computers down by 3 to 7. So that takes away one station in the children's area, 2 in the adult area, and it maintains the one that's up in the circulation desk uh, for the staff. And then there's 2 what are called OPAC computers that are kind of general use, searching our catalog computers, and there's 1 each in the kids and adult section. So yeah, we had kind of been made aware that those computers would not be supported starting in October of 2025. As a result of that, that does kind of expose all those computers to potential security issues. We do have really robust security services through CEN, and Tab provides excellent support, but it does leave very significant vulnerabilities for maintaining Windows 10 over Windows 11. So that's why that was a bit more of an urgent request. And yeah, to Jim's point, the phone systems would be nice to have, but can be held off. The main issue with those is they are currently still on the copper wire system, and we've found that habitually our security system throws false alarms. And we've confirmed with both our security system Evron as well as Frontier that it is the copper wire system that keeps throwing false alarms, and that can happen anywhere from once a month to 2 to 3 times a day. And we usually, some instances, Evron is aware of the situation, they'll ignore the call. Other times it could be 7 in the morning and I'm getting a call about a phone alarm system and trying to make sure I can answer that in time so a troop C isn't unnecessarily called to the library for a false alarm. So that is one that thankfully it's been touch and go, and that could wait. So that's definitely not as high of a priority as the replacement of those computers are for the public as well as for our staff computer. And there's actually one additional computer that supports our systems that's located in the server room for the library. And if there's any questions, I can feel free to ask. Oh, sorry. One other thing to add is that in the request I did, I believe Jim forwarded to Chairman Lawler and maybe other members of the Board of Finance that in the request there was a range of costs, and just to have a contingency buffer, I think the 20% contingency was $12,610. But we're hopeful if this was approved, we could lock in a contract or put this out to bid and lock in a contract with a company that would be able to get them installed in time before the October 30th deadline.
So I do have a question about the LoSiP funds. Is that, so the original intent was to use LoSiP funds for this, is that correct, Jim, right?
Yep.
Or Steve? So that's not available
One of the
right now
requirements,
because of the,
yeah, Donna recently, kind of flagged it for our attention that, one of the requirements for the use of LoSiP funds, that it has to be on the approved plan. Short of a separate individual emergency authorization request from the chief executive.
So,
he would have to go to the
yeah,
state,
we know, we'd have to declare an emergency, and I,
911.
yeah. Having answered 911 for many
911.
years, this does not rise to the level of 911.
Except you have to have phone.
Yeah,
Okay.
the town would also like to go to VoIP badly, but,
Understood.
we've been looking into that for a year and a half.
I'll move that we transfer $12,600 from 01.1.0831 employee health insurance to 03.1.3096 library computer replacement.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? It's unanimous.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much. Have a great evening.
Thank you too. So item number 4, the referendum passes, set mill rate, the referendum did not pass. Item number 5, if referendum does not pass, without previous budget was approved. Regional School District 19 budget and revenue adjustments, set mill rate at 25.53 mils.
Yeah.
Huh?
So are we going to that now? Are we doing another, is that what you want to discuss now?
Well, we're gonna go into items that. Okay. Yeah, we can discuss that. It'll need to be done because there won't be a referendum before the 1st of July.
It looks like on the calendar though, that the referendum is good, or that the tax bills get mailed out July 21st, I think I saw.
Right.
Yes. That's the plan.
So. Don't we have time to have a referendum to get it, yeah.
July 1st.
Yeah, we would be able to make that.
Well, how long it take to get, print everything?
Well, yeah, I know, but
It would be great if she could get those bills turned out like in 2.5 weeks. And then I think we could like tighten up our timeline and only do one bill. Is that what you're trying to get at?
yeah, I guess.
Because I think it's a good idea.
So why would we set a temporary mill rate then?
We don't know if the budget's going to pass.
Right. We don't know if it's gonna fail either.
It seems premature to set a mill rate tonight. To me. Given that it's unusual that we have this circumstance we have. But it seems premature.
So the tax bills have to be in the hands of the taxpayers on or before August 1st. So, and with the due date of August 31st. So, I don't know how fast the tax collector can turn this around for us. And I don't want to commit her to anything.
How much does it cost to mail? So we're talking about 2 mailings now.
Yes, we are.
Price of it,
And the,
provisional and then excess.
yeah.
What, do we know the cost?
I don't know the cost of a mailing.
Oh,
Postage.
Postage
A lot.
is a lot.
Yes, postage is a lot.
It's going up.
it's going at about 2,000 is the number, right?
Well, that's different though. I mean, yeah, it's,
Why is it different?
well, bulk mails, it's different. It's not stamped.
Oh, yeah. But
It's-
But it's
Well,
not,
wait,
it's
it's
not
not-
bulk mail
it's
though.
not like every door direct.
It's very specific going to somebody's house, so it's,
We have a bulk, there's a ton of bulk mail permit, there's not a
Bulk-
stamp.
but
Bulk
bulk,
mail, you just send it goes
It's
to
a-
address. You send a whole bunch of letters, they just throw them one in each
Yeah,
mailbox.
this.
You don't wanna do
Instead
that
of
with your
sending
tax
it to
bills.
Bill's house.
No, I understand what you're saying is that there is a bulk mail, it's not, you're not putting a physical stamp on it, Adam.
I believe we are.
Huh?
I believe we are. The machine,
At a
the
retail,
machine stamps each
yeah.
envelope.
Yeah,
yeah. There
I've done bulk mail myself before, and it's gone to independent fees, that's why I understand.
There might
But
be
everything
like a slight discount if you're doing it,
Using it
using
through
that
the
machine,
machine, but it's not,
It's
it's not the
not-
same price as a stamp.
It's not
still
half.
I didn't say it was half, I'm just saying it's different than a
Yeah.
retail stamp, and whatever, fine. It's not,
Well, I'm just thinking, cause we're talking a couple thousand at least pieces of mail. It's gonna be probably a couple $1,000s each mailing, and. Well, guess what? We didn't budget for that.
yeah.
That's not in the budget. So I don't know where that's coming from, but. It's also a lot of effort. It's a lot of, I know it takes a lot of time because they have to make sure they're putting the right thing in the right place and, so. It would seem like doing one would be good, but. The tax collector. What does she say?
By the time I tried to reach her, she was gone. I,
She would need to have a mill rate to work with, to send out those tax forms.
yes, but I honestly, I'm in favor of just waiting until after. If the third referendum doesn't work, then send out the temporary bill.
And honestly, that's, if we, 2 mailings plus about 10 grand in referendums, I mean, that's. You know, 2 of which are unbudgeted, so, you know.
Yeah, well, we just have this. That's what made me think.
I think it would be good if we use the tax bills to sort of explain the distinction between a revaluation, which is happening in a 6-year juncture from the last one, normally a 5-year, but this has been delayed. The impact on capturing the, you know, value of homes versus the annual budget process and how that works out. It's not really something that you conflate as far as what animals they are. It certainly is, the revaluation backdrop is certainly a huge impact on the state of mind of the voters, and that's understood. But as far as being able to balance the impact of a revaluation like this one, when we had the nationwide market spike on house values by slashing small town budgets, I don't see that math ever working out. It's definitely something we're conscious of, as far as this is not the year to add an employee in public works or an extra truck or whatever, and I think we've demonstrated that, but I just think one of the ways I believe the voters been confused on these referendums is that it's not the same thing. A no vote on the annual budget is not gonna make the reval go away. So, and in fact, I just wanted to ask you, Bruce, can you, because you know something about this and I don't, I actually asked the assessor if she had any knowledge of how this 14% tax increase figure was arrived at in the referendum, information that went out, particularly by you and others, in your corner. I'm just wondering if you could explain what that 14% figure came from. I haven't seen it anywhere and I've looked at data. I've looked at the assessor's data. I haven't, I'm not privy to all data. But I'm just wondering if you could explain where that comes from.
I really think this is the place to have that discussion.
Well, yeah, because it was texted out to a
was-
large
you know
segment of
what, there-
voters and it was
The
posted.
highest tax increases for taxpayers are up around 20%. And that's if you have raw land, no house on it or anything,
That's if you have a,
raw land with no house on it or anything. So it's a 20% increase for those people. They're roughly 20%.
oh, you mean on land without undeveloped land?
So that's the
Okay,
high,
and you're
okay,
getting
and
that
then-
from,
And then there's still
you're
people.
citing that from where though?
Huh? Yeah, because Ralph Tulis did research on it. All of the information he got came directly from the assessor's office. All of it. And those were the figures that we used.
So and Ralph's a good citizen, but he's a citizen, so you worked off a citizen's data that is not
He
from the
got
assessor's
all of the
office
data
directly.
from the assessor's office. You know what? You had
Yeah.
at year 10. You had data that you represented as being from the assessor's office. And as far as those handouts,
Those were from the
there was
assessor's
nothing
office.
on it that stated it was from the assessor's office.
Well, it wasn't published until an
So
individual
again-
took it upon
again-
himself to
Again, the
publish it,
figures,
and there's a reason for
the
that.
figures that he came up with were from figures that he got from the assessor's office.
But it was his analysis of figures. I'm just trying to
Right,
say, well, why I'm saying, Bruce, is specifically why 14%?
You got your
Because
answer.
that was the banner number that was communicated. And the budget is going up, the budget we presented was going up 3.5.
People are paying.
Why, where did you, how'd you
14%
get from
increase.
3.5 to
We're
14?
getting off track.
Yeah.
We're
I don't
talking,
think that's off track, Jeff. I
we're
think
talking
it's right
about whether or not to adopt a provisional. mill
But
rate
we're
first.
talking about information to the voters. We're talking about clarity to the
No,
voters.
we're not, because it's not an item on here.
I thought we were talking about sending out the bills and making sure
That's-
people understood
Yeah,
what the
and
deal
then, and
was.
then you started wanting to educate people because they don't know what's going on.
I'm not trying to educate people. I'm trying to educate myself. What is the 14% from? I just want to understand it. Because if it's so true, I want to know
I
how it
already
fits.
explained it to you.
You didn't really.
Yeah, I really did.
You said it's
You
from
don't
data
like
that
the
a
an- you don't
citizen
like
put
the-
together.
You don't like the answer. All right, so that's the end of the discussion on that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really.
Is anyone else curious about this?
Well, I don't own land that doesn't have a house on it.
I don't
so
either.
Have to worry about it.
That's what it's related to, 14, you said 21% for
20%.
vacant. land.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
20%.
Okay, so there
I
are
don't
people,
own land without
there are
a house.
people whose assessed, whose revals, they're not paying any taxes at all. Then there are people who are paying anywhere
But that's
between,
just on land
between,
without a house on
between
it.
8 and
So if you
20%,
don't have land with
whether
just
there's
a house on
or
it,
not,
then
okay?
that doesn't
Okay.
Now, as far as the
matter.
reval goes, most
I
of the
guess.
impact of the tax,
I don't
of the tax,
understand
of the
either, but that's what he's
taxpayers,
saying.
here, they're talking. So most of the impact on the taxpayers is because, the commercial taxpayers are paying less money, okay? The, gas station, the new one, Loves, they're not getting any permits anymore, so this town's not drawing money in from that.
I understand
okay?
all that.
Because of depreciation, all of the other commercial taxpayers are paying less in taxes. So that impact is being picked up by the residential taxpayers.
But, okay, so you talked about vacant land and commercial, or commercial property, what I don't understand is the 14, you talked about 8 to 20, I understand what you're saying. I don't know that that's exactly the figures, but I'll take your
The
word
8
for
to
it.
20
I don't
includes
understand the 14.
residential homeowners. Okay, and then up to 20% for those with raw land that's undeveloped. So I've made my point, you've heard it, you don't like it.
No, I still don't understand where the 14 comes from, and that was the most broadly used.
It was a medium.
It's frankly, it's on a
medium-
sandwich
it was
sign
a
in your yard,
medium
you must
range
know.
Figure that was used.
Oh, 28 divided by 2 is 14.
I said between 8 and 20. All right, you got your answer.
That's still,
So on Donna's advice, you've suggested not to go forward with the setting the mill rate at 25.53
It's
at this
risky.
point.
It's risky. You want to take a risk. You all. Christina, I see I get it. It's gonna be two tax bills, one after the other. Some people are gonna be confused, who aren't following the budget. You know, can she get it out by August 1st? Good. If she can't, then it has to go to September 1st. We have 1.5 months in savings to pay for our bills. Now we're 2 months in. Some people will pay, we'll get a little money. You know, I can,
So,
contracts we have to pay.
so from a cash flow perspective, you think
It's
it's okay?
1.5 months.
Yeah.
From a cash flow perspective. But it has to be a statute, and the tax collector knows the statutes. But the way I understand it is that the tax bill has to be like on the first of the month, and then you have the month to pay. So it's either has to be received by August 1st. And if not, then you're into September 1st. See the dilemma? Yeah, kind of see the risk. So, and you kind of have to weigh everything out.
I was gonna say, can I ask Pete?
What I think
Yeah.
you should do is either A, pass this as a contingency to be used if it doesn't pass, or B, don't pass anything and be prepared for to act with some urgency. Depending on the next outcome. Yes or no, you're gonna have to act with some serious urgency to give people in town all the time to get it. And please note, we're currently without an assistant tax collector.
Right, and has our current tax collector even been through a
No.
season? So what's harder?
What's easier on the staff?
Yeah, what's easier?
I don't think that, I think what I would do is if the calendar is accurate, and I believe it can be, just make sure that you are prepared to act with some urgency pending the outcome of the next referendum. Like, tonight being the night after the referendum, you're already meeting, that is showing some extreme urgency, whether it's a regular meeting or not. And I think what you should do is plan 24 hours or 48 hours in advance, get an agenda in so that you're meeting immediately the Wednesday night after the next referendum. So that we can move quickly and do this. I think that's the only drawback is.
Take a chance on having enough
You
time.
can either A,
Well, I know what the
decide
two,
that
I know what the two options are.
you know. And you could pass a mill rate as a contingency. Should it fail, this will be our mill rate. And so they can act immediately following the outcome of the referendum.
So we could, on this calendar, you put this together, right, Donna?
I do.
And in hopes that there would
It's a draft.
be, yeah.
We might.
Okay, so on this draft, if we made the regular, it's not regular, it would be a special BOF meeting on Wednesday, the 16th.
Yeah.
And then the Board of Selectmen meeting Thursday, the 17th. That would put her ahead. That wouldn't put her right up against a July 21st mail date.
Yes. I talked to Ashley today. She said she needed 10 days to prepare bills.
10 days, prepare and mail.
So I just emailed her and said you may want to jump on the call. I don't know if she will,
Good.
but if she's gonna mail on the 21st, she needs 10 days to prepare. That was her ballpark number. So I was curious.
Yeah.
That is, she would need the number before she started preparing bills, I guess is the point.
Oh,
So that's July 11th.
I'm not sure what you have for a calendar in front of you, but that's just. You may want to clarify that with her.
July 11th is before the referendum.
Yeah, The July 21st
So you're not gonna have.
was the first bill.
Alright, so that settles that.
And that's actually having the mail, they gotta be printed up, you gotta have.
It's the printing, that's the 10 days. She
Yeah,
was
it's
planning on sending on July 21.
It's his mail.
And that means she's looking for, I believe, 10 days to prepare. Unless I misunderstood, but that's how.
That makes sense. So
Is there any time that can be picked up between any of these other dates? We're just focusing on that end of it.
Well, July 15th is the referendum, and if it fails and she doesn't have a mill rate, she can't send them out. But
I understand that. I'm saying, is there a way to pick up time so it's earlier than July 15th?
They just have to be delivered by August 1st.
like
He's not gonna have a
in
mill rate until it passes,
the hands of the taxpayers.
By August 1st.
Yes.
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's
The
not
mail
going to
takes
be
9 days.
so.
And that's, we have to set the mill rate after the referendum.
Yeah,
Does in-town
Not have a
mailing
mill
take
rate.
9 days?
No,
No, so why,
well, the 10 days is for printing. I mean, she's gonna send it to
Oh,
them.
so the 21st is not a mail date, it's a print date.
No, that's a mail date. That would be like a,
First task.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. The 21st allows for, you know, more than 10 days or 10 days to get to
yes,
in-town houses.
because there's 31 days in July.
yes.
So that's 10 days to mail them out from here to be delivered in town. That's a slow mail delivery. Hartford and Belfast. Good heavens, where's Doge when you need it?
Okay, let's do it together from Monday. So there's a board meeting. I put in an agenda for this board for Monday to recommend that the Board of Selectmen call a town meeting. So Monday, the 23rd, you all will be meeting, and you will recommend that the Board of Selectmen call a town meeting for the purpose of the third referendum.
Yeah.
So Tuesday morning,
Right.
Peter's gonna need 48 hours to get an agenda out and have a meeting. So that's gonna be Tuesday's morning.
24th.
Yep, so that's Tuesday, he puts it out and he needs 48 hours. So the earliest he could have his special meeting is Thursday, the 26th of June. Okay, now, okay, now to have a town meeting, we have, to publish it in the paper, and we need 5 days prior to the meeting. So he's meeting on June 26th. Thursday, so if the notice goes in the paper on the 27th, that would be day 1. The 5th day is July 1st. So July 2nd could be the town meeting. So we can't move that up.
Okay.
Now, we need 7 days, not less than 7 days, nor more than 14 to get to the referendum.
The 9th.
So then the 9th,
The last time we put something in the paper, we had to have 5 days. It took the newspaper 2 days to get it in for the first day. So it was more like 7
and that's,
instead of 5.
and that's over the 4th of July weekend, that makes a difference.
I don't believe it does. I don't think weekends and holidays count towards 5 days.
But if we can get it in on either the 9th or the 11th, we can still make the 21st.
so what day is the town meeting? The town meeting is on the 2nd? Oh, wait a minute. The
Yeah,
referendum-
the referendum is scheduled on the 15th.
Yeah,
So
The town
Yeah, the
meeting is
town
on the
meeting's the
2nd,
second.
yep,
so then you send it off to the paper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 would be the 9th.
so could we
For
have
the
the
town
referendum
meeting.
on Wednesday, the 9th?
We could have the referendum on Wednesday, the 9th.
Yes, we could. Got it. Wednesday the 9th. So let's do that. Let's do July 9th. Okay,
And then we would meet the tenth.
yes,
Yeah.
Yep, okay, so now we have another meeting on the tenth.
yeah, and special.
What day of the week is it?
That is a Thursday. Board of Finance is gonna meet on the tenth.
Board of Finance? Okay.
So then
The
you'll have
selectmen
it
can meet
ready.
on the 12th.
So.
And Ashley will have, she'll have 2 weeks. She'll have 11 days. If she could get them in the mail on the 28th of July,
Yes.
folks would have them by August 1st.
Done.
How does the close on Friday work into this?
Town office building closing on Friday. How does that work in this?
It doesn't matter, people come in on overtime, they'll do it. Okay.
Yes.
So the business staff is here already and actually is very,
She's very conscientious.
yeah,
She would come in and do it to get it out.
well.
Okay, so that's our plan.
More than the overtime.
I know.
Referendum on the 9th, special board of finance meeting on the 10th,
Sets the mill rate.
sets the mill rate.
We're off to the races.
Yep,
Also.
One mailing.
one mailing.
We got it.
Both are out. So we got- They'll take 4 days off.
While we're talking about the mailing, can I request that we include something in the mailing that explains the tax bill?
Throw it.
Say more about,
In the
say
context,
more about it.
yeah, in the context of the reval, because, there's good, some people are gonna have, maybe a 14%. But some people are gonna have an 8%, some people are gonna have a 6%, some people are gonna have a -2%. So something that explains like that, because this is the first time that they're actually seeing the effect of the reval. Everybody did get mailed that something about their valuation changing, but and we've been encouraging people to do the math on their own home, but I know just from people asking me questions on Tuesday that not everybody did that.
How would you then?
A lot of people were just saying, somebody told me 14% and I multiplied it and my taxes are going up $5,000 and that wasn't true. When, once I explained it. People, it's a little bit different than that. In some cases. They had a 2% increase. Or whatever, so I think there's just gonna be a lot of confusion and a lot of. Questions coming into the town hall and it would be good.
All right,
I would-
there was,
and I
there
would-
was a synopsis on the reval itself. Colored graph and all that stuff. That we want to put, how broad would we make this?
Well, I think it should be, I think
Well,
it's,
I'm just, I'm picturing this document in my mind. I don't have it in front of me, but I kind of know what it said, but it was pretty intense. So what do you want to take out of that?
I think it's hard to, I mean, I think what I would ask is that the assessor put it into a simple essence of what is the range? Where is the, like sort of where is the volume of,
You know what I'm talking about? What we got?
when you're talking about,
What you.
No,
Sir?
no.
Oh.
Well, there's that.
Oh, from like a week ago, where that Pete sent out.
No, this is one second.
When we
No.
got the revaluation.
Yeah,
Statement. Yeah.
well, there's your personal read, while you're,
no, that's different.
that's different. We got the assessor put together. Well, you did too. No, you didn't.
No, it came from.
Came from the assessor, but it listed where the impacts were. Residential, commercial. Every, classification, basically. I mean, it went as far as showing, top 10. Taxpayers.
And she may know more
Yeah.
now, because for instance, when I asked her about it last week, and she's on vacation this week, so she can't be here to say anything more about it right now. She said the waivers and abatements had not yet been applied, so whatever, in her charts, which I said to anyone who looked at those charts and. So that would change that, because when waivers and abatements are put forward, particularly like 100% home tax. Waiver for fully disabled vets, for instance, a new state law, that will, of course, shift that burden to other taxpayers who are not 100% disabled, who are not getting that waiver. So that burden shifts. So we'll change it. I got the impression it would be a few percentage points, but still, those numbers in that graph were not final. So I'd say an updated, whatever she did before, Jeff, that you're referring to, an updated picture of the impact of the reval that is in a format that a taxpayer could understand, would be helpful. And also a statement saying, this is separate from the annual budget. This is not the same increase as the annual budget. Because I think that's been confused in the discussion, and I think it would be helpful to people to understand that. I think a lot of people do, but a lot of people don't. Because it's all happening at once.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to peel this apart. Frankly, it took this a very while to peel it apart, so.
Well, and I'm just looking at the numbers of people who voted versus the number of property owners, and not even vehicle owners.
Right.
That's a lot of different bills are going out, and we know that all those people who didn't come and vote, only a percentage of them did. So perhaps this is the first they're gonna hear of it, and it's gonna be a shock. So.
And that if it's possible, since vehicle bills are going up pretty simultaneously, that would be helpful to say, if you compute your, with this mill rate, if you can compute your savings on your vehicles versus, based on this new mill rate, that will, in most cases, it may be almost all, unless you just bought a new souped up model, it would definitely come off your net, it would come off favorably on your net tax paid. So, for me, it made a huge difference. It went from, in dollars, $772 to $560 in the second referendum to $170 once I applied the vehicles as an impact.
It's $16 tax bills on 20-some-year-old vehicles, so it doesn't matter.
What's that?
If you got older vehicles, it doesn't matter, they're not working exactly anyway, and they're taxed at like $16.
Well, mine aren't that old, but they're old. They're not new. They're not in the 20s. Let's put it that way. So, yeah. Anyway, I think that would be really helpful, and especially with a single tax mailing and the shock value that we all know exists with a reval, and it always does, but this one in particular, I think, because of the market values.
We always support Peter talking to Kara, having her write up an explanation to put into the envelopes.
Yeah. I think it's a good idea.
That'd be
That's the
great.
person it should come from.
Yeah,
Yeah, I need to.
wouldn't be biased.
And she was the grand dame of the reval, so she knows what the numbers are best.
So we're gonna suggest that to Peter,
Great.
we can vote on that.
Sure, you want me to make a motion or?
Yeah. Look for a motion that we have Peter talk to Kara about sticking a explanation to the taxpayers regarding the reval and the relationship to their increase in their taxes.
Do you want to say more?
No. I don't think so.
Well, reference to the vehicle taxes and.
Well, it's gonna be everything.
I think all of it.
Okay.
Whatever.
Well, I just wondered if it's in a motion and that's gonna be the instruction, I just.
Well, it's gonna be a
We
synopsis
might
of
wanna
what the
say what it
email
is.
did to each segment of the.
Cause right now they can't look up their new, car values. They'll only get that in the bill. So that's why it's important to know that then. They
Yeah.
they can call and ask, but that's just asking the staff to do that for you, cause you can't look it up yourself.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
And I'd like to, could I move that we accept the third referendum budget calendar as edited?
Yeah, you'll send up an updated version.
Yes.
Alright.
Second.
Alright, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous. All right, we'll move on to item number 6. If referendum fails, discuss and vote on amounts to reduce the general government and Board of Education budgets. As we all know, the general government budget passed, so we just have a board of education budget to discuss and vote on. And I'd like to just ask at this time, members of the public not participate in any discussions regarding this. Discussions will be between members of the Board of Finance. Bill will be speaking, I'm sure Peter will. Arthur, you here representing the Board of Ed?
Not officially.
Or is Brianna going to be representing? All right,
Yeah, she's on.
and Brianna. So all other members of the public are present to speak after new business. You can make your comments then. So as we all know, the Board of Education budget failed by roughly 5 votes and 22 votes. So we are here to discuss further reductions to the Board of Education budget. So, we were at 2.6% is where we're at now. That's what failed. I would say open discussion at 1%. Which would call for a total reduction of $255,533. The amount that's been requested for the year.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry, just one, your figures, just the figures.
The new 25-26 net to be raised would be $16,422,933. Reduction from fail net to be raised $255,533. Dollar increase net to be raised 24-25 to 25-26 budget $162,603.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any comments on that?
I don't know where you expect them to find that money. Without affecting people's jobs and or services that directly affect the kids.
But it's not for us to decide where the money comes from.
Well, I understand that. No, I get that. I'm just saying, in their budget, as it's been presented to us, they had. I think it was just over $200,000, right? Right around there. That was not already accounted for. They cut 162,000. So that leaves them with somewhere between, my mind's mush right now. But it's not 162,000.
So what do you suggest?
I'm saying I don't know where to get it. I don't even have a suggestion. I think it's insane that we're in this position, that we have to ask them to cut more.
I just want to note one thing, because this is education related offset, and that is after we were in the process, we had the town meeting before we went to a second referendum. The state at the very end of its session one of the citizens who works in state data pointed this out at the town meeting. The state restored, a cut they made in our year-over-year ECS designation. They had cut us for this upcoming fiscal year by 72,000 and change. But what was it, Donna? Or it was 71,900 and 904 or something. It was, that was released by the state undid that in the final hours of the legislative session. So that money is now reducing the amount to raise by taxation and its education funding. So I just want that noted that's not something, because of the way the numbers are in the bookkeeping, can be directly applied as a cut, but that is definitely or as a savings on the school spending. It is definitely money that's reducing the tax hit that is related to the schools and because of the schools, 72 grand. So I just want to mention that has already been done.
Bill, could I ask you a question? So, a couple of months ago, I believe it was, the state approved excess cost grants, turning money back to the town. We got what, $73,000
In Syria,
Okay, and that was under 24-25.
correct.
Okay, so didn't they just announce that we're getting the same thing for 25-26?
I haven't seen what the percentage, I think is, that's in the document for the budget is at 70%. Excess cost reimbursement. That's what we calculated off of.
Do you know what that figure is?
380,000, I think that we're estimated to get back,
Okay,
and that's factored into the budget already.
all right, and then. So how much money is left in the non-lapsing fund?
100, maybe 115 after the 100 is applied. Next year that they're reapplying. So, and any additional funds that you take or the board decides to apply from non-lapsing into the following year. Sets your budget back already, so if it's a recurring cost. We already applied 100,000, we're already 100,000 in the hole next year. It doesn't happen in this case because of special ed outplacements, we're planning that will be a wash. If they apply more non-lapsing funds to the 25-26 budget. They will start the following year with that hole already as an increase. Because it's a recurring cost. That makes sense.
So, what can the Board of Education provide? To make happy the voters so that they'll pass it in the next referendum?
I don't have, I mean, the board didn't vote on anything specific, I mean, they'll have to discuss what the cuts are. I think in the first round, what they offered in that 162 that was cut. That was their initial feeling. And I just want to clarify, did you just say that you're looking at the cutting 255?
It was just a starting point,
So
because
that,
we're already at 2.6.
right, if you cut 255,000, I think that we would be at like a 0.1 increase, right?
Yeah. Or 1.1%.
One more or one?
One,
No.
we know, that's
1% increase would be $95,000. 9.7, yeah.
$15,000 last year.
$15,000 more than last year if you're at that number, that's correct.
You're saying a 255 cut would be 0.1?
We currently, I'm doing fast math, our current increase is $270,537. If you take out $255,000,
You got 20.
we have an increase of 15,000 for 25-26. I'm just saying that's like,
It's 0.2.
0.2.
It's, sorry, I'm not, sorry, but it's, the budget's about 10 million, so every percent you wanna go down, it's about 100,000. So if they're 277 now, you wanna get to 1, get to about 177. Real quick.
I don't see the point of that, particularly not with an 8 vote margin. I don't see that that's,
That was 22.
I'm sorry, the 22. or 22. That's under 2%.
It failed though.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, and the
did
government
fail,
went
but at
past
the
it. doesn't
town
mean it's-
meeting before
Yeah,
this referendum, there were multiple people that stood up and said they were tempted to vote no because it wasn't enough. There, I mean, it is, but they were there and they said it, so.
well,
Yeah, and
And I-
actually, to tell you the truth, I was coming in here loaded for bear to say, let's raise it 1.5%, because honestly, yeah.
here's what I heard a lot at the town meeting, and honestly, I don't, I don't think several people at the table were there, but those of us who were, heard, about 40 people talk pretty persuasively about their pride and their value, the value they place on the schools. And one of the things that they talked about was they thought we hit capital way too hard. And of course, the way events unfolded on the last day of the session with the legislator voting on an appropriations bill that specifically names Wellington in line for a school building project of renovation, full renovation or new build with an 80% state share. This is not the time to hit your capital pad that's that is supposed to be directly focused on taxpayers in event of a bonding situation. So, a lot of people have noticed that and did talk about that. To me, that's the ugliest part of the budget. But I really feel like, what people at the table don't seem to always acknowledge is that hits education directly. That was a huge cut just because it's in the general government budget, because that's where capital dwells. Doesn't mean it's not affecting the schools, because it is.
We're sitting here one day after the vote. The Board of Ed hasn't even met to have a
Right.
discussion about it. We want to hear that first, what they come back with. I
Yes,
think
sure
I would
do.
like to hear that.
Sure do.
And I'm just being really frank. I don't know what the Board of Ed is going to discuss. And the reason why is they put forward a budget that was needs-based. There's not fluff in there. If you want something cut and to get to a number, give it to them. Because they're gonna go back and they're gonna cut $10,000, because that's what they feel like they could do without. They were the only board proactively right away that went back and met and cut money. They cut 162. Any money that you cut from the education side was in CIP. There was no additional cuts from this board. And so they presented a budget that is a needs-based budget, and it's the exact reason why I just went through all those percentages. We've been reasonable every single year. The things we put in front of you are not fluff. They're there. The years where we have excess money, it's because someone waived insurance and we have additional insurance funds. And then it goes into your non-lapsing account. So I'm not sure. I mean, the board's not gonna go back and talk about cutting $250,000 per position. I'm just gonna tell you, they're not gonna do that. They've laid out before this board what they believe was a fair cut. Was the 162 that went in and failed. I think you have to figure out as a board, what is a fair number that you think will pass? Because the Board of Ed has already given you that number. It's a 277.
Which is well below the overall 3.5 that we went to referendum with, and government budget did pass, so.
And then 277's lower than any other education budget around us. $255,000 is lots of people. That is what I will say. They don't find that in supplies. You have contracts. $1,500 for preventative maintenance. You don't get $250,000 from cutting those things. That doesn't exist in the Board of Ed budget. It's why it's so transparent in the budget document. You can see where the money goes. The only way you get that amount of money is lots of people. And unfortunately, in contracts, it's the last in, and typically the last in is the cheapest.
Bruce, I know you don't want public discussion, but you might. Yeah, your board member follow up on Bill's point. At this point, my opinion is I would not, as a board member, go back because anything beyond what it is now is positions, and that was made clear for the last referendum. I'm not gonna proactively go back to the board to start looking at people's jobs without any kind of number. I can't do that, so it would have to come from their board. We would have to go from there. I mean, I would have to go from there, against the league. I would.
You speak as the board member, is there any chance we could use some of our CIP money that's banked? Is there any way to borrow that or somehow?
Yeah, I asked that the other day and I was told no.
It just seems that that money's there that. And we probably won't be using it this year, so,
What will you use it for?
well, that's. My understanding is it's kind of in savings for future repairs and things like that.
So do you use it in what way, and are you, you need to apply it as a.
Like if we
It's
could,
it's in the general government budget, it's
Yeah.
the, which that budget's already been passed,
okay,
so it's not touchable.
And we do have, we apply fund balance every year, which is also in a way savings, because it's just money that hasn't been spent, but it's a surplus from prior year or years. And this year, we can't apply as much as we have in the past, because there isn't as much left.
even if we just use what we hadn't used in the past, you know, I'm just thinking,
Yeah,
and that way it wouldn't affect the children.
yeah, if we could apply more fund balance, that'd be great, but we can't.
Okay.
Raise it 1%. Go up 1%. Do it.
Do what?
Raise the education budget 1%. They've got nothing, no, it's not ridiculous.
The voters voted it down.
Why?
They
Why?
voted just figure.
They didn't necessarily vote it down because it was too high. No,
That's
you
the-
don't know that.
That's delusional,
Okay, fine, great.
thinking that they voted it down because they thought it was too low.
We've heard from, you weren't at the meeting.
No, I wasn't at the meeting.
No, you weren't.
Because most of the people that go to the meeting are representing the position of the Board of Education. I've been to those meetings before,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
The people who were at the meeting said that they were there because they actually cared. And the ones that were there who talked said that they wanted to see more money in the Board of Education. There was a woman from Texas who chose to move to Wellington specifically because the schools in Wellington were good. And she wanted her kid to grow up in a place with good schools. So let's give them some more money.
So we're gonna
1%.
tell people that just voted a budget down, that we just gave them a tax increase. Here you go, and it's gonna pass. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. So we're
I
just
don't-
playing around like, and we're gonna waste another referendum
I
opportunity.
don't necessarily
Yeah.
think that it was voted down because people think it was too high. I think there are some people in town who think it's too low, or who think the CIP budget has been drained too much. I think there are a lot of people who think the
I
CIP
agree with
budget
that.
who have been decimated. Actually, quite literally decimated by the definition.
Decimated, yeah.
By the technical definition.
It's so seldom used precisely, but that was
Precisely, yeah,
precise.
that, I was actually going precisely on that one. Give them 5% or 0.5%.
I would go with that.
Okay,
If it were going into capital, just because that's the cut that I think was the most painful.
Well, can't.
I know, I'm just saying, I
Well, I
said,
mean-
that's why you used the conditional, Jeff, that's why I said I would go there if it were. But it can't be applied to capital.
Could it be applied to capital if Phil agreed to reserve the funds and put it back at the end of the year into capital?
I'll never guarantee that we're gonna put money back after special education. This,
Fair,
we presented one thing, a week later, we were
fair.
Right.
8,000 home. I mean, and I'm just being honest about that, like, there's what, 14 days left in 24, 25, something like that, for the current budget. And I'm still watching spending because if something changes.
Yeah.
Is our work here done?
No, we have to decide, exactly the number that we're telling the Board of Education to have to cut.
No, it's not a cut, it's a reduction, because they're getting more money than they got last year. They're just getting a reduction on the money that they're requesting for 25-26.
Except for the
That's
fact
not for
that
next
cost
meeting. Well, I think if we're gonna do anything like that, we do need to hear from BOE.
No, because BOE is saying that
So they can't do
they're
anything.
not going to go back to their board and say much of anything without a specific number. So if we don't give them a number, there's no point to them meeting. And we have a meeting on Monday, so if they're going to meet at all, they need a number.
We also commit ourselves to one. Bills.
Voted on the calendar, so. Come up with a number.
I think one of the board members is trying to.
Yeah.
Another idea, if we were to use some of our lapsing fund and make that a percentage out of that, Phil, can you, what do you think of that, if we can't do that?
Already said, I mean, the board could vote to, you could cut $100,000 and the board could say, we're gonna take all of it out of non-lapsing. With the risk that the following year, you're gonna have $100,000 in increase right away. Donna's nodding her head. We've had these conversations.
Okay.
We typically try and do a non-lapsing amount that we can guarantee each year. Or it's applied towards something that doesn't reoccur the following year. Because if it reoccurs and you've applied the 100,000, you need the $100,000 offset again. Otherwise, the $100,000 is right from the get-go.
Right, could we, if we got to that place, then go to the Board of Finance and request money if we needed it later in the year? And that would pass the budget, but we wouldn't have great losses. I could think outside. the box.
There was a genuine need for it, but. Then the amount, there's a certain point where it's gotta go to a town meeting, and the town's gotta vote on it. That's what, $20,000?
Yeah, I would like to move that, we, do not make any additional requests for a reduction to the Board of Education budget before referendum, given that there is already a reduction in amount to be raised by taxation among the public of the ECS money, approaching about 72,000. I think that's enough of a difference in the picture related to education.
Second. So you wanna leave it exactly where it is? Is that what
Did
you're-
I say it clearly enough for a motion or not?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I second it.
All those in favor say aye.
well, wait, is there discussion?
Discussion.
This is a point, a couple of years ago, there was a referendum question that failed, and it was razor thin, and the town administration waited, I believe, 4 months and then presented it again exactly as it was. And it failed by more because it was believed that it was gonna keep going until it passed, because you know, they weren't listening at all. I would suggest you make some,
But Pete, that's what I'm saying. I would like it noted
right,
that the
Oh,
72,000
understand
is
that.
already an education related
Yes.
thing. And
But-
not only that, Pete, but we have several examples of budgets in the state already that have gone through, that gone back to voters with even an increase that have passed and subsequent.
I haven't heard of those, but that,
Oh,
I'm not
yeah,
telling you in.
There's several cities.
I
towns
just know
happened.
that Stafford on their education went to 0 and it failed again. So they were 0.1%, then they went to 0 and it failed again, so they're having issues up there as well.
So why is
But-
that an argument if you go to 0 and you can't get it
I'm
back?
not saying go to 0, please,
Okay.
I'm not saying that
No,
at
but
all.
I'm
just
saying, why is that an
The,
argument?
the referendum question, even with your $60,000 and $70,000, whatever it is,
72, yeah.
72. The referendum question isn't, we're gonna go for exactly the same amount, but keep in mind, there's $72,000 more coming from the state.
No, we
It's
don't.
gonna, the
We
referendum
just say a
question is
dollar
gonna
figure.
read the dollar figure,
Right,
and it's gonna be exactly the same.
right.
But
That's-
the mill rate will be different.
The
though.
mill rate
rate
will
might
be
be different.
less.
Oh, no, it will be
I'm
less.
not saying any of that, I'm not, that's all true. Every bit of that is true. Just keep in mind that the question will be exactly the same. And if you, there's a lot of, I know the first time it failed by more because there's people that say, listen, you're not listening to us. That's all I'm saying, just. You can do that, I'm.
And you're
100% with you,
giving
but I'm just-
one example of what happened, and I'm not doubting that could happen and that did happen.
Right,
I mean, some of these towns are just not getting anything past period, and they
Yes,
haven't for
that is
years.
also true.
They have not for years. This is saying stay flat. We think that, I mean, the margin is not big. I don't know.
You got a
And,
motion,
yeah,
second.
motion and a second.
All right, any further discussion? No, all those in favor say aye.
I,
All those opposed say nay. Nay. Any abstentions? So it's 3 yes, 3 no. Abstention.
Can I make another idea, rather another idea? So are we guaranteed to get that 70,000 from the state?
yeah, it's already done.
Okay, so would we, so I hope. I hope I'm not speak out of.
It's not a grant, it's their money.
It's not a grant.
Okay,
It's not like Title One.
okay, so if we're guaranteed to have that money, could we cut that from our budget? So it looks like, but we know that we're getting the money to cover our budget.
You
No,
won't
no.
get the money to cover your budget. That's what Phil was saying.
Okay.
It's not like other state grants that go directly to the budget. This is goes to the general fund,
Okay,
as state aid, but not directly applied to a program, correct?
could we request it from you to cover?
Well, if I understood what the board is saying, when you set the actual mill rate, that's when you determine how much revenue you're going to apply to set the mill rate. I think they're factoring in, the 72,000 additional dollars that they're getting in ECS funding. It just doesn't get applied to the Board of Education budget.
It's reducing taxation because
Correct.
much of the budget is taxation beyond the budget, yeah.
But if we need to have a number to show that we have reduced it a little.
It doesn't work that way.
Okay, so. How are you here? Sorry.
That's not, it's just, the budget world is not a perfect one.
So I was willing to go as high as 1.5%. Maybe 1.7%.
So you wanna tell them to cut 174,000?
No, it wouldn't be
Like
that
1.7, better.
Huh?
1.7.
Yeah, because 1.5 would be 255,000. We're talking 1.7.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
174,
174, 231, yeah.
That's 1.5. Oh, okay.
So 1.7
would
is
be
what?
100 grand.
So how many jobs would that be?
I didn't hear the number.
174?
No, that's 1.5, we're talking 1.7.
And that'd be how
So
much?
what is 1.7? I'm sorry, it's not on the chart.
We don't know where those reductions would come from.
That's why I'm
It would be
asking.
staff or anything, but we don't know where it would be.
That's why I'm
You're
asking
assuming
Phil.
that it would.
They
already said anything beyond what they've already done means.
Yeah.
They've already said that, so that is a safe assumption on our part.
1.7 is about 100,000.
And he would be the one.
100,000, no, 1.7 can't be 100,000.
No.
You're at
It's
2.7 now.
95 plus
Oh, to
1.7.
come to 1.7.
Yes.
Okay, agreed.
Roughly,
He's talking about, they're talking about $100,000. So if you're looking at, depending on what the positions are, it could be A or it could be multiple. Depends on what the board does. Again, they're not going to come up with $100,000 in subscriptions and supplies. It doesn't exist.
Right.
We know that.
Well, I'll make another motion. I move that we ask the Board of Education to, before the third referendum, remove $11,628 from its budget. Arriving at a 2.5% increase.
There's a second,
I'll second.
any discussion? If there is no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Nay. The abstentions? 3-3. 0 abstentions.
I just don't think I really don't think a 22 vote margin means remove teachers. I just don't see that.
Doesn't have to be teachers, there's all.
Oh, yes, it does.
There's all kinds of support
No,
staff
there-
over there too.
Well, support staff,
The support
I
staff
mean,
still affects.
a lot of the support staff is teaching. I mean, it's not like, what, we're gonna let the nurse go or?
I think that was statement.
Would it be fair to say with the 70,000 savings from ECS? If you add, if we cut 30,000, could you look at that? I know it doesn't affect them, but this particular number, but it does affect the mill rate. And as far as what
Sure.
the effect of it would be. So would that be a good way to do it?
So the 70,000 combined with 30,000 from the
The
department.
72,000, so 28.
Yeah.
28,000.
Conceptually is $100,000.
Yeah.
It's $100,000
I
to
understand.
the good, to the town.
Right.
That wasn't there last time.
To reduce taxation that much,
Yeah,
the impact of 100,000.
yeah.
Yes.
So we're looking at what, 1.7%?
No,
It
it won't
would
show
be-
up there because
Yeah.
that's part of it is the ECS money. 30,000 would show up, so it would be,
So the cut would be $30,000. The cut to their proposed increase.
Donna, you doing that? Oh, good. She's doing the math.
So the budget request would be 10,900,000.
So 30 grand out of there is what's the percent? What is it?
0.3. Board of Ed budget,
Yeah,
it's a 2.4.
2.4,
What is it?
2.4.
Thanks.
Isaac, my only fast math person, 2.4.
Yeah.
First time's good. I don't know how to do that. I can't
What's
do
that?
that. I wanna learn how to do that.
Can I just make a quick suggestion? When you suggest something like that, you're conflating two things.
No, I
because
know.
the reduction you're talking about, the 70,000 directly affects the mill rate and nothing else. And
Right,
the other 30,000 also affects the mill rate, but it also affects the Board of Ed's number.
exactly.
So it can be confusing because it's $100,000 reduction that would affect the mill rate, but not $100,000 reduction that would affect the Board of Education percentage.
Right.
So that's what the confusing part is. So that's,
Yes.
it's a way to do it, but it's almost like you'd have to clarify why the BOE budget didn't go down to whatever percentage you're looking for.
Yeah.
That could all be rolled into the letter that we're asking Kara to write too.
Yeah.
I thought we were.
I mean, the
I thought
motion-
we were ending that letter with
That's
this
too late.
tax bill to wait.
No,
Right,
it would
that
look like-
was-
You're right,
That's a
you're right.
Totally different
Yeah,
subject.
I already acknowledged that.
Could be shared at the town meeting.
The motion I made would have taken it down from a 2.77 to a 2.5. And that failed. So I think that was enough for 22 votes. And now we're talking about a little bit more than that, so
I'll make
2.4, so.
make a motion, we reduce the BOE budget by $92,929.
I'll second it. Any discussion?
Gonna bring it to 2%.
No.
Probably not, wait, 2% is 92,929. Yeah, no, 1.8. Sorry, it would be carried by one.
Would be 1.8%.
Ish.
Can you verify that, Donna?
They might hit that one. 6:30.
What is the number that you want to reduce by 92,000?
92,929.
This is 2% here.
It's 2%.
Yeah,
To the,
from
to
the
the,
chart.
to the
This
net
is
to be
not
raised,
applicable.
not to the Board of Ed, but to the
Right.
net to be
That's the
raised.
exact-
Okay.
Mhm. Right. 92 minus 7. Keep in mind, folks, we all know this. The discretionary money in the Board of Ed budget is 200 grand. It was 200 grand, well, whatever. This is half of that. This is half of that, and that was before their cuts, their last cuts, so.
Of 160.
You know, this is definitely positions, what they are is questionable, but this is what it's cutting into. And, you know, does a para who also helps teach, that's okay, because technically she's not a full-time teacher. You know, I mean, let's keep our eye on the context here.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Nay. Make a motion to reduce the BOE budget by $30,000.
Second.
Any discussion? Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna say aye.
Huh?
I'm gonna say aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
That's nay. Extension. Did you vote, Chief?
I said nay.
So,
That fell.
yeah, so it passed three,
Yeah,
two,
it failed.
three,
It failed.
it failed,
Yeah.
okay,
3-2, 1 abstention.
3, 2, 1, if there's an abstention, isn't that the same? Isn't
No.
that?
3 failed, or 3 nay, 2 yay.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Can always let it go to last year's budget.
No.
don't want to.
You can't, you gotta go to, you gotta come to a budget eventually. You can use, last year's budget is what we
Temporary.
use as a temporary fix until we come up with a budget. We'll go to last year's budget until such a time as we pass a resolution, and we'll keep doing this until we pass it.
Thank you for clarifying that.
I'll make a motion, we'll reduce it by 40,000.
Second.
That'll be how much? 2.2. Second, any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? So that was what, 2 to,
That was 3 nays. 2, I didn't hear you vote.
yeah, I said no.
Okay, so that was 4 nays,
Four.
2 ayes. All right, I'm getting confused too.
And the taxpayers had more in mind than $40,000 reduction. I think $100,000 is fair. Allows the Board of Education to make the decisions where the reductions would be.
Make a motion to reduce the BOA budget by 25,000.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Nay.
So I didn't say anything yet. I'm gonna go for it.
I go for it. All right, it's 5-1.
5-1. That's almost a consensus.
Actually, that's. I think but the addition sounds inspiring standards. Religions.
All right, so we meet on Monday, June 23rd. We'll have a special meeting to recommend to the Board of Selectmen to call a town meeting for the purpose of a third budget referendum for the pre-K through 8 education budgets. Next Monday.
How is this year half over already?
Because we were already doing this, but.
The older you get, the faster it is, really. How are my kids 22?
More than half of you felt now.
All right, so that's it for new business. Going to present to speak, participation is desired and encouraged. Speakers will be limited to time and appropriateness of comments to maintain progress, stay on topic, and maintain the quorum. Do we have anybody for present to speak? Yes, sir.
Mike Foster, 19 Birch Meadow. I have a suggestion that we go back to what we did a few years ago when budgets failed, send out a questionnaire to townspeople to determine whether they want it increased or decreased. Because you, right here, you don't know why people voted one way or another, just making a guess. So I think going back to what was done, I might have been on your watch. We had questionnaires go out after budget failed, to ask the question raised or lower. And that would give you a better idea of what town folks are actually thinking.
Didn't we talk about doing that on
We
the
consider
next
doing that
referendum?
as a question on the referendum.
Yeah, and I think that wasn't a budget, it was, something about the gun range, I think.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
Either way. I think
Yeah, but you're right.
In the process.
Yeah.
Thank you, John T.
Hi, John T. Hand 26 Eldridge Mills Road. I just want to point out two things. We've succeeded tonight in scheduling a new referendum for 21 days from today. I can't help but notice that we did not do the same thing after May 6th. It just seems to me that that was a deliberate slow walk, and I really wish that that had not happened. I would ask these boards in the future, if anything like this happens again, let's be prepared to move with some kind of alacrity to get these budget referendums scheduled. We could have had two more votes before July 1st had we acted with any kind of alacrity after May 6th. Second thing, Chairman Lawler, I heard you again tonight deciding to just unilaterally cut off discussions on something that you didn't want to discuss anymore. I'd remind you that your job as chairman is to facilitate discussions among board members, not to end them. And I really, I don't think that we should see any more of that kind of behavior on this board or any board in town. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anybody else? Oh, James.
Yeah, hi guys, James Marshall, picture over again. I just want to encourage you all to support and rally support for this, because quite frankly, all of this is pointless. This 25, I don't want to see any reduction to the schools. I would have supported, quite frankly, an increase to the budget because they're already hard. Any reduction that's going to be a loss of staff is worth nothing to me. When the reality of the $25,000 decrease, that saves me $2 a month on my mortgage. That's going up $1,700 this year because of the revale. You could cut 100,000, that's only saving me $5 a month at the loss of staff in the schools. That is ridiculous. Be responsible adults, pass a budget. The Board of Ed is not going to make up all of the inconsistency with the revale. It's just not. It's not practical. It's not possible. And I'm willing to pay $5 a month to keep staff from being cut in these schools. Support staff, teachers, what have you, even resources. It's really an effort and utility at great cost of taxpayers too, because every referendum we do is going to be another $10,000 or whatever that cost is, additional mailers. This is a waste of money and this is a waste of time. And the sooner we can promote, I don't even know, I'm gonna stop here. Thank you for being reasonable as I guess we can be in the direction of the Board of Ed budget. I encourage everybody to move this along and pass this budget now, because it's not worth what we're doing to ourselves. Thank you.
Great, thanks, James. And
I agree with Jim. I think at this point, we need to work together as a town to support the acceptance for this budget so we can get on with business as usual. No more waste money on referendums, extra mailings. Let's just get our town to stand beside it and support it so we can move forward. Thank you.
thank you. Anybody else for President to speak? Oh. What?
Elaine Newcomb from your road. It's maybe off the topic, but I don't think it's off the topic. I think there's so little understanding by the community of what's going on in the schools. I know a couple months ago, whenever it was, not too long ago, I learned that there was that the students were doing a play. And I thought, wow, I heard about it the day before or extemporaneously, anyway. But the only, you had to like order tickets online or something. There was nothing on the green that there's a show. Almost every school in America has a spring something going on, whether it's a festival, it's a choral program, something to make it visible to the community. I was just looking at some demographic statistics, which I think are accurate. Said it was from 23. 17% of the households in the town have children in the household. So there's a vast number of people in town who are totally are divorced from what's going on or need to be brought to what's going on. and maybe involved. I know times have changed. Kids used to be more in the community, and all their safety issues and all kinds of things. But somebody could be creative enough to at least get some publicity for the wider community to be aware of what's going on. And I just offer that as a suggestion as an ex-teacher. There's a big block, and that could perhaps move something a little bit forward.
That's a great idea, Elaine. The sign on the green.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Brianna Ross.
Hi there. I just wanted to thank you all, the Board of Finance members tonight, for being open to lots of different possibilities. You all threw out a lot of different numbers and different options. So thank you for doing that and for taking the time to have some discussion and to let Phil speak also. Can you just, because there were so many different numbers stated, just for the sake of very clear information, can you please restate the action taken tonight and what the Board of Education budget needs to be for this next referendum?
It was a cut of 25,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm making it real basic on that one, but I know there's more.
So that
Was
would
it
be,
what the
net to
actual,
be raised would be 16,653,466.
I think she's looking for the Board of Education budget number.
Oh, whoop, sorry.
That's my assumption.
That's
Which I
helpful
believe-
too.
So I think it's
Yeah.
245,537.
No.
The increase.
No, the increase.
Or a $10,014,754 budget, if I did that right.
Yeah,
Yes. 10,014,754.
Yeah.
and there it is.
The percent is to,
Around 2.7. Right, anybody else? Anybody else present, please, Peter?
It's disappointing to hear from members of the Board of Finance that they don't believe a 1/3 turnout of our voters. I think it's very good for our town and better for most people. Is meaningful feedback. We matter,
Didn't hear anyone say that.
we matter, and our votes matter.
You didn't say
Thank
that.
you.
Nobody said that. Peter.
And besides, it wasn't quite a third, but it was 31%, but.
Yes.
Judy Friedman, Lane, Richmond Lane, difficult meeting. Thank you, everybody, for your engagement and your participation. But now that a decision is made, you all need to stand together. You need to stand together with the selectmen. You need to stand together with the superintendent. You need to stand together with the Board of Ed and establish a unified front. The cracks at the town's government and people going out and making statements against what the boards have decided is what is hitting hard at the polls. And that's what people are responding to. You need to come together, whether you personally are not thrilled with the decision or not, you have to stand behind it and you have to move forward. And I hope you all do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your participation tonight. Anybody else present to speak? No, then at this time, we have a motion to adjourn.
Under just nothing to keep you here longer for good and welfare. We lost a few people this past month in town, one that's. What's the, where am I for? Relevant to this board, Ish in that, town. She was she worked in the finance office for many years. She was the, treasurer. And she's a very dedicated, employee.
Yes.
Thanks, Jen.
Anybody else for good and welfare? At this time, then, could we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Oh, you seconded it? Oh, sorry.
All fair, all those in favor say aye. Aye. The opposed?